Now you have to admit, that was pretty cool. I worked really hard on it. Hi, I'm Mattia, and if this video landed on your YouTube recommended page, you might just be like me, a stressed high school student. Now, I promise I'm not just here for some random reason. You might have been thinking about taking up an instrument. I took it upon myself to do extensive research, and this is why stressed high schoolers should take up an instrument recreationally. Now, a disclaimer, I am not a professional in any way, and all of my sources will be linked below. This video is meant to be more of a scientific aspect on why stressed high schoolers should take up an instrument. If you are looking for something a little more easier to digest or more reason-based, I would check other sources. Now, let's begin with my research. First, I'd like to talk about the effect of music on the brain. Beginning with an article published by George Hicks titled, "How Playing Music Affects the Developing Brain." He begins by bringing us into the world of studies on students' executive functioning skills in relation to music. He covers multiple studies conducted by Nadine Gaab, Ani Patel, Dr. Gottfried Schlag, and Paulo Andrade. All of these researchers share a commonality: having music aid neurodevelopment in children's brains, specifically the executive function. What I'd like to focus on, though, is what came of these studies, a hypothesis developed by Ani Patel, titled the opera hypothesis. In a direct quote by neuropsychologist Patel, he says, "The basic idea is that music is not an island in the brain cut off from other things, that there's an overlap. That's the O of opera. Between the networks that process music and the networks that are involved in other day-to-day cognitive functions such as language, memory, attention, and so forth," he says, "the P in opera is precision. Think about how sensitive we are to the tuning of an instrument, whether the pitch is in key or not, and it can be painful if it's just slightly out of tune. The last three parts of opera, the E, R, and A, are emotion, repetition, and attention," he says. "These factors are known to promote what is called brain plasticity, the changing of the brain structure as a function of experience." Patel goes on to explain that brain plasticity results from experiences which engage the brain through emotion, are repetitive, and acquire full attention. Experiences such as playing music. So this idea, he says, that music sometimes places higher demand on the brain, on some of the same shared networks that we use for other abilities, allows the music to actually enhance those networks and those abilities benefit. Now from here, I was still a little confused on the benefits of brain plasticity, and from quick Google search, you see that there are many benefits. It allows your brain to change and learn new things, the ability to enhance your existing cognitive capabilities, and this can in turn promote brain fitness. You're telling me you don't want your brain to look like this? By improving our cognitive abilities through increasing our brain plasticity, through, as we said earlier, playing an instrument which engages all of those factors needed to increase brain plasticity, we are indirectly helping ourselves be easier learners. I've drawn this conclusion with the alignment of what Nadine Gaab, a researcher at Boston Children's Hospital, who is pictured on the right, has the overarching conclusion that, and I quote, "There are a lot of different brain systems involved in successfully playing even a small musical piece. Your auditory system, your motor system, your emotional system, your executive function system. This playing together of these brain regions almost like a musical ensemble." Gaab's point is that musical training can refine executive function and academic skills. For a closer look on a more cellular level, the University of Arizona Global Campus staff published a short article that explains the science of how music affects your brain development, mood, and health. Music can boost antibodies, stimulate endorphins such as oxytocin, as well as promote overall wellness. The university staff also touched on in this article how different genres of music can impact you differently. Now, to take a more closer look on that side, we will delve into how each larger genre can affect your brain and its state of being. Now the question here is, does genre really matter? Well, for classical, it enhances dopamine and serotonin, also synaptic function, learning, and memory. For heavy metal, it elicits a sense of identity and a knack for community and development. For rap, it stimulates emotion, language, motivation, motor function, and processing via the flow state. For pop and rock, it improves endurance and enhances physical performance. It can also distract you while you're working. Lastly, jazz soothes the body. Next major point in my research was music and health. In an article published by Harvard Health, the author delves into the world of music and the effects it has on your brain. They touch on the music in relation to the brain, stress, and medical conditions. I specifically wanted to focus on stress, as you know, being a high school student under a lot of stress. A direct quote is a different part of the brain. The cerebellum processes rhythm and the frontal lobes interpret the emotional content of the music. Reading further into this article, this is when I learned about the correlation between music and stress. In this article, the author talks about a study from New York that examined how music affected surgical patients, some of the most high-stress people out to date. Out of 74, half were randomly assigned to listen to music prior, during, and after their operation. Their blood pressure would be monitored throughout the process. Both sets of patients had the same blood pressure entering the surgery, but the patients assigned to listen to music had an impressive drop in blood pressure during recovery, while the other group, with no music, stayed tense. The music listeners also reported having a calmer experience in the operation room. Now, I personally can't think of any other similarity between surgery patients and stressed high schoolers than stress itself. That's why this study conducted in New York is the perfect example of why music can have such a positive effect on stress. By reflecting on the results of the study done in New York from the stressed surgery patients, along with the opera hypothesis that we learned earlier from the neuropsychologist, we can then infer that not only does music have a very large impact on our stress levels, but they can help strengthen our neural pathways to help us become better learners. Stick with me as we close our research with habit formation. From the British Journal of General Practice, a section called Making Health Habitual, The Psychology of Habit Formation, published by Benjamin Gardner, Philippa Lally, and Jane Wardle dive into the psychology of habit formation and their general practice. Their leading argument is that since patients look to doctors for lifestyle changes, they should be advising their patients to implement habit formation tactics in their life. They state that being able to do something habitually comes quicker with simpler tasks rather than elaborate ones. There are actually 3 stages of habit formation: the initiation phase, the learning phase, and the stability phase. Gardner also addresses a common myth. It takes 2 weeks to form a habit. This is inaccurate because it takes closer to 10 weeks to establish automaticity. This article is exactly what you need if you want to learn how to form a new habit. It provides many resources, such as a table to track your habits and the stages that you're in. This essence of their argument is that we initiate habits simply through consistent, conscious repetition. Once we repeat said enough action, we will unconsciously begin performing this habit once stimulated by external cues. The table you're viewing here is my logged practice hours. As we get closer to the bottom, we see that there's less time in between the dates that I practiced. This is because my external cue was having my guitar right next to my bed and right next to my mirror, where I see myself every morning when I get ready. Having these external cues has definitely created a large impact on my practice time. Now to move into my actual practicing and progress. As I began practicing my song Slow Dancing in a Burning Room by John Mayer, I quickly found that it was not interesting, so I changed it to The Night We Met by Lord Huron. expected with the first week, I wasn't doing too well, but that didn't stop me because even though you can't see it on my face, I'm having a lot of fun.
2, 1, 2, 3. And as I said, you're going to do it 2 times. So 1 and 2. 2, 3, 4. So that's picked twice. So 1 and 2. Right, so the first part is E minor to D to G. Right, let's start from the beginning. Now you come back. Alright, that completes your intro. Let's play everything once again from the beginning. E minor, D to G, and then E minor, G to C. Alright, let's go. E minor, D, G, G again. E minor, G, C, C. You're gonna repeat this all over again for the intro, and then you start.
So, what we can learn is that students, especially high school students who are stressed, can face many benefits from learning an instrument recreationally. It's just something you can do in your free time because it helps release endorphins, relieve stress, and even help with your motor functions. I personally have seen an increase in my grades, and I'm not sure if it's completely linked, but there are signs through the studies that were provided that that could be a possibility. It's as easy as just going to your local store for instruments and renting an instrument or borrowing one from a friend, which is personally how I got started playing guitar, and just having fun looking up different songs that you like on YouTube, and maybe in the future taking it a little more seriously. But for now, I hope that it helps you release your stress, and I hope that you see some great benefits. I've definitely had so much fun just practicing guitar, regardless of the effects it may have on my grades, or the accusations that I make that they have. Um, but yeah, honestly, just taking the time to step away from the work and enjoy what you have, enjoy a new instrument, work on some hand-eye coordination depending on which instrument you're using or you're learning, and just having fun. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.